Some of you may not remember this, but back in August 2013, I put up a report on a national anthem sign-off that had subliminal messages in it that looked like the inspiration for the 1980s John Carpenter movie They Live. Take a look.
Our national anthem.
Did you see the letters change at the bottom? Let's watch it again in even slower frame-by-frame motion. Now you can watch that whole entire video. It's up on our channel and I will put a link to it below. This is the sign-off that would have played at the end of the day's TV broadcast back in the 60s. And it's been claimed that this clip was found lying around on a film reel at a local TV station out of Alabama. And it looks like it was part of a CIA-sponsored project into subliminal messages and mind control. Because as we know, MK Ultra, which has now been declassified, was going on at that time. And it's specifically mentioned in the subliminal message. Now, other people have disputed this and say that the video is a hoax, but I've actually found some more information lending to the fact that it might be real. The first claim it's a hoax is based on the fact that it seems too on the nose that MK Ultra and MK Naomi are specifically mentioned, because we now know that those were specific names of CIA mind control programs that were going on at that time.
While that might seem true, it doesn't make sense because MK Ultra had not been declassified and made known to the public, and wouldn't be until 1975. And moreover, people didn't have VCRs. Nobody was readily recording and replaying these things, so they wouldn't expect someone to catch it and look at it later.
Now, the second claim has to do with the fact that there's a version that doesn't have subliminals, where the film looks a little bit darker. And so the claim is that this was taken from that.
Well, the top version's formatted for a smaller screen, and it takes from the larger frame that you see below. That would be a wider aspect ratio. And, whatever the larger version is would be the full film playing, and another version would be cropped, altered, and formatted.
It doesn't make sense to say that the one with the subliminals came from the one without, because the one without has a narrower field of vision. When I originally put this report up, I actually had not researched the subliminal aspect of MKUltra as much as I have now because of the third reason people say it's a hoax, which has to do with the fact that subliminals just don't work, so why would they bother? But they did bother, and they definitely were looking into that. They were definitely looking into it in the 50s, and it all adds up with this video. Recently, I was looking through some congressional subcommittee hearings, like you do, and apparently they held one on subliminal communication technology, which was held in the year 1984 of all years, and put into the record was a Southern California law review document that mentioned several very interesting points. First, it notes that according to previously classified documents, the CIA was testing subliminal manipulation in movie theaters during the late 50s, and in a document on these studies speculated that subliminal projection can be utilized in such a way as to feature a visual suggestion such as obey deleted. So they were openly, literally discussing putting the word obey into a subliminal, and they were openly doing it in movie theaters across the country, including one in Alexandria, Virginia in the late 50s, right around the same exact time that this national anthem sign-off would have been created. Obey deleted. What do you want to bet government was put in there?
That is pretty spooky that they redacted who they told people to obey, but that there was a command to obey.
It also says here that the Central Intelligence Agency has investigated the possibility of using subliminal communication to implant suggestions or commands to reduce a subject's resistance to hypnosis or to affect political outcomes. That's all stuff that's on record. And even this law review admits the extent of the CIA research is unknown. But they were saying obey something. They redacted whatever that was. I mean, people say that it's a hoax because subliminal messages don't work, so why would they do it anyway? And that's not even really the point. The point is that they were doing it at all in the first place. That's the point. But as far as it working or not working, obviously this was still going on at least up until the 80s because Congress had a subcommittee hearing all about this. A meeting where, just by the way, they don't mention brainwave entrainment even one time, which was something that was coming into being at that time. So
because this stuff progressed over the years and became more sophisticated.
So Congress has a meeting about subliminals in the 80s, and they specifically don't mention entrainment. I think it's pretty red herring. Anyway, what is mentioned in the congressional subcommittee hearing that probably no one paid any attention to at all is the fact that throughout the 70s and during the 80s before this hearing, little black boxes were being put into stores that were playing subliminal, for example, anti-theft messages in one example to customers. And it cites a 1979 article out of Time magazine where it specifically talks about how they're using these little black boxes that mingle bland music with subliminal messages, an anti-theft message, I am honest, I will not steal, repeated rapidly 9,000 times an hour at very low volumes that are barely audible at all to shoppers, but register in some deep recess of the brain and apparently influence behavior. 50 department stores in the US and Canada had installed the devices to reduce shoplifting and employee theft. The black box inventor Hal C. Becker says, I see no reason why there won't be audio conditioning in the same way we now have air conditioning. They were also using these in people's workplaces, like in a real estate office. I love real estate. I will prospect for new listings for clients each and every day. Can you imagine? They're playing these things 9,000 times an hour subliminally to people where they work, where they shop.
That's the thing. Classic subliminal technology has been shown to increase sales profits or compliance with commands not to steal by a certain margin, a significant margin that makes it worth the expense and the trouble. Well, in a political system where people vote, a message to obey the authorities or obey the government might just be enough to keep a certain majority in power or a certain political policy rolling.
Ladies and gentlemen, this commercial is going to use subliminal advertising.
But much more significant than that is the fact that visual subliminals in a single frame of a movie or spliced between words, as we saw in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, has become a refined scientific targeting technique where they have a specific frequency and a specific audience in mind, they can layer signals underneath the visual and audio stuff that you watch on TV or in movies.
This guy, Hal Becker, by the way, founded a business out of Louisiana called the Behavioral Engineering Center. So just think for a second about what that means. Without trying to make this long video even longer, Becker has co-authored several papers and used to work directly with a neurosurgeon named Dr. Robert G. Heath. Heath, in the 40s, was researching ergot with the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research, and by the 50s, he was doing psychosurgery and the implantation of electrodes to stimulate certain areas of a person's brain and control their moods and behavior using radio frequency. Was definitely on the record an MK Ultra doctor. You know, a lot of those records were destroyed. There's not a way to prove everybody's involvement, but he's the whole time that Dr. Heath and his team, the whole team, by the way, was cleared for top secret clearance with the military and working with this MK Ultra stuff. He was also working with this guy Becker, so it stands to reason Becker was also part of it.
Well, what you have is a spy project by the CIA and others that was never fully declassified. We only have a breadcrumb trail, and yet all the pieces link back to this chain of doctors who were involved in mind control research at universities, and it only makes sense that the CIA would be behind deploying this signal if it is real, and if they've got doctors on the payroll who are making great strides in making this technology a reality and marketing it to their own clients. That's pretty significant.
I'm just saying, I mean, these aren't people that just do things for no reason. I mean, this Becker guy, he worked at MIT, Tulane. I mean, you could go back and his CV is quite extensive. These people were all highly educated people, so you can't tell me that by the 80s, he's randomly doing this for no reason because he doesn't think it works. He's an engineer by trade. He was working in neurosurgery, and he wouldn't be working on subliminal technology for, 30 plus years of his life if it didn't to some extent work and there wasn't other things involved there. And obviously we know the technology is completely moved above and beyond whatever this was. But the point is they were doing it, and there are declassified CIA documents, according to the congressional record, which show that the CIA was literally talking about putting subliminals into things that say obey. Now we have this national anthem, and I don't know, just think about how many times your average American would have seen the sign-off. This message was played over and over on TVs throughout that time period, every night, night after night, when people are beginning to fall asleep for at least a decade. And so what did they accomplish what they were trying to? Did they not accomplish anything? Does it matter? The fact is they did it.